Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday to you. It's February 27th, 2025. I've got all of your news for your rush hour ride to work. On this episode, we have an update on the tragic death of Michelle Trachtenberg. I'll share that story. And a measles outbreak has led to the death of a child. I'll explain if you're in any risk and what to know. Plus, Monica Lewinsky, again in the news. More fallout from her Call Her Daddy interview. Not fallout because of her, but Jay Leno is taking some heat for how he treated her back in the day. Also, an asteroid update. Looks like we're all in the clear. No need to worry. No need to panic. And Candace Owens responds to being mentioned in Blake Lively's lawsuit. Also, an update on Medicare. And I'm also going to give you an update on Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, as a lawyer has unearthed that Ryan Reynolds was actually sued last year. I got all these stories and more. It's all coming up right now on The Rush. Well, as you remember, they said there was like a 3% chance this asteroid was going to hit us in 2032. Well, they have downgraded the odds. Here's your update.
An update now on a story we've been talking about for several weeks now. An asteroid that will fly near Earth in 2032 is now expected to pass safely by our planet. According to NASA, the probability of impact is now just 0.004%. That's down significantly from an estimated 3.1% just last week. The asteroid is up to 300 feet wide, big enough to cause some major damage if it were to hit Earth. But those odds, at least for now, appear to be growing smaller.
Come on, nerds, get the science right. Is it going to hit us or not? And by the way, speaking about natural disasters, the show Paradise on Hulu, I'm not here to give any spoilers, but this show knocks it out of the park. If you're not watching Paradise on Hulu, get on it. I want to start a TV show club. Can we do that? All right, let's go to this tragic story. Michelle Trachtenberg passed away yesterday, and now we're finding an update. Her mom found her lifeless in bed. Details have emerged in the death of Michelle. Her mother tragically discovered her daughter's body in bed Wednesday morning, months after her liver transplant. So I guess it's considered a natural death at this point. That's what they believe, and her body may have rejected that liver. That might be one of the things that happened. So again, if there's more, when there's more information, we'll let you know. But just a tragic story for an otherwise very successful and actress that my generation has had plenty of movies of hers in. Where we've appreciated her on Gossip Girl. And speaking of Gossip Girl, Blake Lively remembers Michelle Trachtenberg. Here's what Blake Lively had to say on her Instagram. This is the first day, and it's a photo. This is the first day I met Michelle. She was electricity. You knew when she entered a room because the vibration changed. Everything she did 200%. She laughed the fullest at someone's joke. She faced authority head on when she felt something was wrong. She cared deeply about her work. She was proud to be a part of this community and industry, as painful as it could be sometimes. She was fiercely loyal to her friends and brave for those she loved. And Blake Lively goes on and on. So there it is. There's an update from one of the members of the Gossip Girl cast. A lot of people have said things about her, from Keenan, who worked with her, I believe, on Nickelodeon, to Ed Westwick and others. So real tragic story right there. All right, here's another tragic story, a totally preventable one, this measles outbreak that's happening. And I don't mean to alarm people, because this measles outbreak, I guess, is taking place in a Mennonite community. I think the main problem with measles is if you're unvaccinated and you have measles and you travel, sometimes you can't detect it for 2 to 3 weeks. So you go to one state fair, next thing you know, we have a full-blown outbreak. So either way, here's your update.
What are the most important things to know and contextualize about what we're seeing playing out in West Texas?
Well, first of all, it is so sad, Major. I mean, a death from a vaccine-preventable illness is especially sad. I have to say it's not particularly surprising to sort of put this in perspective. The measles vaccine was licensed in 1963. Before that, every year there were about 500,000 reported cases, probably 3 to 4 million cases in all. So many went unreported. And there were about 48,000 hospitalizations. 1,000 people got encephalitis, which is brain swelling, brain inflammation, and about 400 or 500 people died. what happened after the vaccine came along, it just plummeted. You don't see that ever. It's just
I know. And so any epidemiologist or person with any amount of smarts will tell you this, and I don't mean to have any debate, which is why we don't need to have one, that when a vaccine comes out, it just eradicates measles. It goes away. An otherwise, horrible disease that's so painful, just gone. And you can't get the vaccine until you're a certain age. So, I've got a son who's 9 months old who's at risk, and we got to watch out for people that, might cause harm, of course, not on purpose. But anyway, so there's your update. If the sort of outbreak gets any bigger, we will continue to cover it. All right. Well, we've shared several clips of Monica Lewinsky, and now she's making the rounds on Call Her Daddy podcast, amongst others, as she's promoting her new podcast. And Jay Leno says, I never targeted Monica Lewinsky. She was fair game. That in response to this clip I'm going to play for you right now.
Men versus women treated you? Like, was there a difference?
I think what was interesting that I started to see in the public arena was that very sadly, it was a lot of women who said worse things about me than the men. The men told a lot of jokes, right? So the late night hosts. I think when Jay Leno retired, some media boop-de-boop, whatever organization, had done a study and listed the top 10 targets, his top 10 targets of his late night show. And I was on that list. And I was the only person who wasn't a public figure.
Now, this is tough, right? Because from the comedian perspective, target is such a weird way to put it. You're just writing jokes about what's in the news. Like, if I was doing the Rush Hour podcast in the early 2000s, I would be talking about Monica Lewinsky. So is it Jay Leno's fault for making jokes about it, or is it the fault of society for kind of blaming her? I'm not really too sure. Here's an interesting clip from that same podcast, which I guess we're playing enough clips, it must be good, where Monica Lewinsky says if she didn't wear a wire, with this investigation, she would have gone to jail for 27 years.
The world finds out about this. You find out that the world knows. Where were you and how did you find out?
So just to reel it back a few days, I found out about the investigation several days before the rest of the world did. There was a sting operation that happened in a shopping mall. And then I was there was a Ritz-Carlton attached to the shopping mall. And I was in the hotel room, really realizing that what felt like my life was over. Certainly my life was going to change, and that I was threatened with jail and, essentially told if I didn't cooperate and wear a wire that I would go to jail for 27 years.
Yeah, because we've talked, it's just you remember these stories years later and look at them with a different lens. But Monica Lewinsky, it's like, talk about not wanting any of this. Now you might say, well, she, it takes two to tango. She was a consensual adult and all that jazz. But at the same time, it's just another example of how like Bill Clinton's career really, it's a stain on his career, but it didn't otherwise change the trajectory as the president of the free world. So anyway, I support it. Monica Lewinsky, let's get you on Driving with Dave. Well, let's do the PR rounds. I'll interview you. All right. Coming up next, we've got Candace Owens. She responds to Blake Lively mentioning her in their latest legal documents. That story next. All right, time for some Blake Lively content. We've got Candace Owens responding to being in the lawsuit. Have a listen to what she had to say.
That Perez Hilton, who has been covering this extensively, has a conflict of interest because apparently he was a client to Brian Friedman. But there's a little bit of dirt thrown on me here because I'm the only other person that gets mentioned. And I want to be clear. They said at least one of whom just so happens. So they're like kind of trying to signal like, oh, but Candace could be too. So let me clarify. I have never spoken to Brian Friedman in my life. And it hurts me deeply. As I said to you guys, like he and I are connected in the stars or something. Like, he might be my brother from another mother. I've never spoken to Justin Baldoni. He's literally my cousin. Okay, so we're talking about a family that's been torn apart. We've never even met each other. We're a long lost family. So don't you try to put this little, ooh, maybe even other people, because then they mention me and they quote my tweet. And I'm not sure what argument they're making, because I'm not sure what argument they're ever making, because their entire lawsuit is just filled with contradictions. But they use my tweet and they say, late last night, which is what I said, I tweeted this, late last night while we all slept, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds filed a protective order. The guilty as sin couple is asking a judge to protect from the public some confidential documents and names that will be gathered in the discovery process. And then after they put my tweet, they write, predictably, the media outlets picked up the same narrative. Okay, yeah, but that's what you did. Like, what am I guilty of here? What am I guilty of here? Leading the pack of people, like, because like what, we're psychotic and we're checking your filings every day. And we said, oh, look, yeah, she's filing for more protection to protect, she thinks it's confidential documents. We just read through this. We showed the public that's what you're doing. So I don't understand why I got name checked here. And then just to say, predictably, the media outlets picked up the same narrative. They're like, they got me out here looking like Regina George when she cuts her shirt.
All right, so I guess the question is, did they include Candace Owens in sort of a way to make this political because she's got a right-leaning audience? I'm not saying everybody follows her that's right-leaning, but a lot of her opinions are. Or is it just because Perez Hilton and Candace Owens are bigger names than Stefwood Dietz and Dave Neal? You know what I mean? Popcorn Planet. I'm not sure. But yeah, this idea, and you know, this actually reminds me of a lot of times when, if you watch like the Oscars, and then go on Twitter, you'll find 100 different comedians all make the same joke. Because when something so obvious happens, a comedian knows joke structure, puns, punchlines, the different connective tissues that could make something funny. And it's almost the same way. So it doesn't mean they're stealing jokes from each other. It just means there's that collective thought that happens. And the same thing is applied here with the intuition that comes from reading these court documents. A new court document comes out. A lot of people have the same opinion. A lot of people call bullshit on the same things. We all see it from the same sort of collective hive mind. It doesn't mean we all think alike. It means it's pretty obvious when you interpret what's being said and what the reaction is. So not to say Candace Owens isn't a trendsetter in her own right, but there's a lot of people online all having similar opinions, which is Blake Lively's full of shit. Well, how about this? Ryan Reynolds was being sued at the same time Blake Lively was putting together her lawsuit. So says Not Actually Golden, the TikTok account. She was able to find this, I guess it was, hiding in plain sight. This TikToker, Not Actually Golden, who's doing great work breaking down the legal process, was able to find a copyright claim, someone suing Ryan Reynolds. Have a listen.
In November of 2024, so the same time that Blake Lively is putting together her complaint to file against Justin Baldoni, Ryan Reynolds got sued for copyright infringement and some other things by a photographer from South Florida. And he got sued in his capacity as a person who helps run Aviation Gin. So this photographer in South Florida takes photos with branded products and she posts them on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And then the products reach out to her and say, hey, we love the photos that you did with our product. Can we repost it? Can we use it? And she'll say, yeah, if you pay me for it, right? So this is kind of what she does. And she had an ongoing relationship with aviation doing these kinds of posts for, it seems like, a couple of years before the pandemic. She says there was one instance in which they actually set her up. They paid her to do a photo shoot. She did it, and then she got paid sort of like a normal photography session. But that there were multiple times that they told her, like, oh, we're going to repost your thing on Instagram, or we're going to repost something or use it in an ad, and we're going to send you swag, or we're going to set you up with other jobs, and that never materialized. But then everything hit a fever pitch in 2020. And I sort of remember this. And when I saw the picture attached to the complaint, it sort of jogged my memory. She posted a picture of a martini glass with a bottle of Aviation Gin and a packet of Emergency, the powder, sitting next to it. And it said Quarantini. And the idea was, right, we're in quarantine, so you need the emergency, but also you need gin. And it kind of went viral. And there were good things and bad things, right? The emergency people were saying, please don't drink if you're sick and all that. But, you know, good or bad, there's no such thing as bad publicity. And in her mind, this really raised the profile of aviation gin. She mentions a time when Ryan Reynolds went on, I think it was Colbert, and talked about it. And she said, you know, to give credit where credit's due, he actually mentioned her by name there and said this was her idea. But there were multiple other instances in which she was not given credit. She was never paid.
So you have this sort of standard copyright infringement lawsuit, and then it gets interesting.
One of the allegations that this woman makes in her complaint, beyond the copyright infringement and the breach of contract where they promised her stuff and never gave it, is evidence spoliation. So remember, you guys have been asking me, like, when people get these preservation letters that say preserve all your records because we're about to be in litigation, what happens if they don't do it, right? What happens if they destroy the records? And I said everybody can get in a lot of trouble. This photographer claims that she sent preservation letters to aviation and all the people who run it and said, I'm thinking about suing you, so hold on to all the stuff. And that after they got it, they then went onto Facebook and started asserting reports of her own photographs on her own page to get Facebook to take her posts down so the evidence wouldn't be there in the case that they originated with her.
Jeez.
And she actually sued them. That was one of her claims in her civil case, was that they did that. Now, we'll never know if that's true. And again,
we'll never know because it's settled. And when things settle, you don't know. So anyway, if that photographer wants to slide into anyone's DMs, please let us know. Either way, great work by Not Actually Golden. I mean, the FBI could hire these folks, just doing fantastic work. I mean, I know this is all publicly, available information, but this is the stuff that is going to be dragged up for the next year if this thing goes to court. So that's why I also believe this thing's going to settle. But I'm telling you what, on the day it does, we will be going live. Justin and Blake settle their lawsuits, and then we'll have to find out for how much. That's what's going to happen. But until then, it is a train wreck of epic proportion. All right, coming up next, we'll get into the political stuff. We got some Medicaid. We had a comedian absolutely calling out politicians for being shady, which we always love to see. All those stories coming up next. All right, here is Michael Ian Black, a well-known comedian, calling out Representative Mike Lawler, a Republican, for wondering whether or not he was going to vote for a bill that would cut Medicaid. Have a listen.
So when that bill comes to the floor and there's even $1 in Medicaid cuts, you vote?
Well, we're not cutting Medicaid.
Right. But I'm saying, but when that bill comes to the floor.
It has Medicaid cuts now.
Right. If there are even $1 Medicaid cuts, you're a no.
On benefits. If you are eliminating any type of fraud or waste or abuse, that's fine. But benefits to beneficiaries, no.
You understand that Elon and Trump are claiming waste, fraud, and abuse where there is none. So when the bill comes and there's $1 to cuts in Medicaid, you're a no.
I will not cut Medicaid benefits, no.
Right. So you're a no if there's even $1 in cuts to Medicaid. Very good.
Damn it, he was doing so good.
Well, because you're giving me politician doublespeak, and it's
I'm not giving you doublespeak.
You are. It's bullshit. You're just saying.
Way more complicated than you want to make it.
So Michael Ian Black saying it's bullshit. You're doing this political talk, and then he's saying, no, it's more complicated than that. Well, this was less than a week ago. Representative Mike Lawler did vote for the House GOP plan that will cut Medicaid on February 25th. While the budget framework did not specifically cut Medicaid, it required cuts to the department that can only be met by cuts to Medicaid. So what they basically said is find the $880 billion or whatever the hell the number is and cut that. And it's like, well, what do they get? That's not all going to be fraud. That's going to be money that was for sick kids and stuff. So anyhow, not looking good. All right, let's do some other stuff. Let's go to, this is an odd story. You remember when I covered the passenger that had to sit next to the dead body on that Qatar Airlines flight? Well, now they're speaking. Have a listen to this.
Yeah, I'm not a great flyer at the best of times. But when my husband turned around and said, move, we've got to move, I was really shocked. And I said, are they going to, put her there, and luckily a lady behind me on the other aisle, she said, darling, come here, a lovely English lady. And I sat next to her. But so Mitch was across the aisle then from me for the rest of the flight.
This is an upsetting story for so many different reasons. These passengers were on a flight from Melbourne, Australia to Doha, Qatar. Around 10 hours into this 14-hour journey, a woman collapsed in the aisle. Attempts were made to try to revive her. Unfortunately, she did die.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize she died on the flight. I thought it was just a corpse they were moving. Now I feel terrible. So she died on the flight. This is wild.
So then the crew made a move using a wheelchair-like device to try to move her to the front of the aircraft toward the business class cabin. Unfortunately, the aisleway was too narrow, so this woman's body was then placed in a seat next to a married couple covered in a blanket. This morning, Qatar Airways is expressing its condolences to this family, apologizing to passengers about how this all unfolded. Very upsetting for this husband and wife on a vacation heading to Italy.
Oh my! Now I actually feel bad for the person who died and their family, but I feel bad for them having to sit next to the dead person. This is just, they couldn't find any space on the flight. There was no other places they couldn't. In the fact that they couldn't even get business, that's how hard it is to get business class here. I'd kill for business. Okay, so anyhow, this is a story here. Malaysian Airlines. Remember this one? Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 that went missing like a dang decade ago? Which, by the way, talk about conspiracy theories, from it going to a different portal to it being hijacked. Most likely the pilot, just crashed it. But who knows? They never really found the thing.
A new search has begun for the wreckage of missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. The Boeing 777, with 239 people on board, disappeared while flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing in March 2014. Despite the largest search in aviation history, the plane has never been found. The new search will cover 15,000 square kilometres of the South Indian Ocean.
That's what's crazy. You could search 15,000 kilometers, whatever size that is. We don't do the metric system, and it could be in a completely different spot. I've watched every documentary and YouTube video on Malaysian Airlines, and let me tell you guys this right now: if there's any information that ever comes out, I will be reporting it first here on the Rush Hour podcast. All right. Lastly, Trump said, remember those things you get a green card for entering the U.S. or whatever? Well, now he's going to offer a gold card, which is going to cost $5 million. And I guess you pay that and then you become a U.S. citizen. He's essentially farming out immigration. Well, he was asked point blank, would you let any of these Russian oligarchs in? And of course, the easy answer would just be like, no, of course not. I'm not working with the Russians, but we don't get that.
A Russian oligarch be eligible for a gold card?
Yeah, possibly. Hey, I know some Russian oligarchs that are very nice people. It's possible. They're not quite as wealthy as they used to be. They're not as wealthy as...
Seems like people are laughing at Trump, not with him. So this whole idea that he's not working with the Russians isn't working too well when you can't, A, say Putin's a dictator, B, say Ukraine was he said that Ukraine was the aggressor, even though they were invaded by Russia. And now he's saying he's gonna let one of these Russians, this is just...
As they used to be. I think they can afford $5 million.
So
no, a lot of people are going to want to. A lot of people are going to want to be in this country, and they'll be able to work and provide jobs and build companies and pay taxes. All of those things. It's an incredible. It's an incredible thing. I mean, this is the group that is the first to hear it. Nobody's heard about it. Nobody ever thought about it.
Well, there's a reason why. We've been so hell-bent on trying to kick people out of the country, and now we're going to let them back in, but at a admissions fee. I mean, look, I'm no more or less an American citizen than Trump is, but I say go fuck yourself. You can't just be like auctioning off who gets to come in the country, and become a citizen. I think it's insane. Also, he says, they'll be in the country, they'll pay taxes. Trump his new tax plan is to cut taxes on people that make over $1 million, right? He's going to give them the biggest tax cut. I guess my biggest shock is that this is even an argument or a debate that people have, that they're not immediately furious that the whole idea of Trump's presidency, the platform that he ran on, was make America great again and make it work for the people, the American citizens. Now he's talking about admissions for other people and they're going to pay taxes. No, they're not. You're cutting taxes for the ultra wealthy. The only people that are paying more taxes are the middle class. We're going to continue to break this down as information comes out. It's a lot, and we'll see what they end up voting on, and we'll see how it goes. I hope you guys can trust. I'm going to try to provide you all the accurate information. All right, we'll be back this afternoon. As always, I'm Dave Neal, and this is The Rush.